Okay, thank you all for coming.
You can totally move forward too.
Yeah, please. Feel very welcome to join us. This is our panel discussion, Wearing Many Hats, an Oboe studio teacher conversation. Just a note about the format and why I'm holding a mandrel. I am recording, so these are microphones clipped onto our little mandrels. So we're just gonna be doing this, but also like addressing you. I'm Alli Gessner. I am a studio teacher primarily, but I also freelance. I live in San Jose, California, and I've been a member of IDRS since college. So the reason that I wanted to do this panel discussion today is because oboe teachers are often one of few in our community, and we don't often get to talk to each other about the issues that we face and also our workarounds to get around them, not just technically, but also like, socially and emotionally with our students. And I think that's really important. The first conference that I attended was in Ithaca, New York, with my oboe teacher from high school. So cute. And it was right after I graduated from high school. So I was an itty bitty oboe baby. And Mrs. Grover, she didn't play in any big orchestras. She went to IDRS every year as a studio teacher. So I think studio teachers have a long legacy of being members and also a little bit underrepresented in presentings at conferences. So that's hopefully what this will start, the hole that this panel will start to fill in conference offerings. About the format, I will be our host. I'll keep the conversation going, but we've already met, we've already spoken, and I think we're gonna have a really cool conversation about all of our different experiences. And I will save 10 minutes at the end so that we can take questions from you, the audience, based on anything that you hear today. Mm-hmm. And hopefully our conversation here will be the first of many that this begins and continues to foster among our studio teacher community in not just oboes, but also the bassoon world. So I'm joined by 3 other panelists. We are all studio teachers, and I'll ask each of them to briefly introduce themselves, including how long you've been teaching, the ages of students you teach, and where you live. So I'll start. I've been teaching for over 15 years, and I currently teach students age 10 through adult in my home studio in San Jose.
Hello, thank you. My name is Erin Brophey. I am the principal oboe player of the Saskatoon Symphony and a sessional lecturer at the University of Saskatchewan. I also have a private studio in my town, which is in Canada, in Saskatchewan. That's north of North Dakota. And I teach ages 10 through adult. I also do a good deal of online teaching, and I really, really, really enjoy that. I was wondering, could we take a little temperature check just so that we can point the discussion we're going to have. How many people here currently teach privately? Yes. Okay.
I've got a mandrel.
That's great.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Jaleen Seshadri. I'm an oboist, English horn player, and I have a small oboe studio in the Austin, Texas area. I think this is my 4th or 5th IDRS. I also went to my first one in college, I think. I'm a mom, so I have a lot of hats, and a wife, and a cat mom as well. I teach ages, 10 through adult, but it really kind of probably, 12 to 18 is kind of my sweet spot. Any other questions? What was it? Age, number, where I live? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Suzanne Segredo-Kundler, and that's kind of exciting to say doctor because that's kind of a new title for me. Thank you. I'm also an oboist, an educator, performer, freelancer, entrepreneur. I teach privately in the communities of Austin and the Chicagoland area. I bounce back and forth, and I'm currently climbing the ranks in higher education and starting to expand my career in the collegiate level of teaching. But yes, I teach anywhere from the beginner babies all the way to even senior citizens, and it's truly been a pleasure to see different voices emerge from step 1 to step 99. And let's see a little bit about me more. Yes, I commute between Chicago and Austin, and I have 4 cats. I love them dearly. And oh yeah, IDRS. I've been going to IDRS since I was 18. I also got into the job of Oboe Chicago. I am their senior sales associate, their exhibition manager, social media manager, and what I like to kind of cleverly say, Shauna Lake's right-hand lady. And so because of her, I've been going since I was 18, have not missed a conference ever since, except for the international ones, because international is a little hard to get to. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here all these years.
Awesome. So I wanted to start by discussing our studios a little bit so you can have an idea of where we are coming from and our frames of reference. So the first question that we have is, where do you teach from mostly, and do you also teach online? So I run what I call a hybrid studio, where my students must be okay having lessons online if they are sick, or if I am sick, or if I happen to have a gig that takes me far away from home, then I will rent out a little room in a music shop and I'll give lessons online so that I can make it to rehearsal on time.
I just do that from the hotel room.
From the hotel room.
That's way more
Well,
professional.
you know what? I usually don't get a hotel room when I drive up an hour away to Berkeley and then come home.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so where do you teach, and what does that look like for your studio?
Thank you. I teach at a university, so I have university students. I also teach online. I run a program called the Oboe Path, and that uses many modalities in teaching. I have a course that I've recorded that my students take, and then I give them feedback over an app. So they send me recordings, and that frees up my time because I perform full time. So part of my story of the oboe is that now I live remotely, but I'm originally from an even more remote place in northern Canada, and I started playing the oboe, and I did not have access to good information, functioning instruments, or functioning reeds. And so for me as an oboist, it's very important to get that information out there, which is why I try to make a time in my busy performing schedule for teaching. It's really important to me. Subsequently, I don't teach one-on-one lessons to middle schoolers and high schoolers, but I run group programs, and I run them out of a church basement. That gives me a lot of flexibility. I only teach them for 2 hours on a Tuesday, and I'm able to teach many students at once. So they're getting access to information. They're also getting access to community, which I find with that population can be so important for their journey, but also to keep them practicing.
We got one.
Keep handing it that way.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of group lessons. So not only is it good, I think, for the students, but it's also really financially lucrative. If you haven't looked into the group lesson thing, the model is pretty impressive. So for the most part, in Texas, I think we have a pretty unique setup, I think, from other states. We, as private lesson teachers, go into the schools. And the directors actually, in the beginning of every summer, they say, here's the new oboe players, and here's the contact info, reach out to them, get lessons started for the summer. So during the summer, they will come to my home studio or do FaceTime or Zoom lessons. But during the school year, it's like, it is Tetris, balancing the students' schedules with my availability and kind of putting them all together. But I have a better system for that this year. Let's see. So the students will be pulled from their band period, essentially, or if they have like an off period, and they come in for their lesson, and it's all the same parameters as like a home studio or going to an office. No shows, bad idea. Like, I still charge for the lesson. You have to show up on time. Text me if you're going to be late. All those things still apply, but we're just in the school setting. So essentially, we get to do our private lessons, but we have a dedicated space. And it makes the access for the students a lot easier. And I don't like going to students' homes. So most of the time they always will come to me. and I do have boundaries on my teaching as well. So I don't, because I have 2 teenagers at home. One who just started driving last week. I'm actually sad about it because, that's the only time you get with your kid when they're locked in the car and to talk to you now. Yeah, I just, I love working in Texas. It's a really good setup from the other states that I've taught in. So.
I can kind of keep it a little simple because I echo the same thing with Jaleen with doing my private lesson studio in Austin, Texas as well. I do offer a little bit of the hybrid as well, teaching online. When virtual lessons kind of became the thing when, the before times happened, the pandemic, I actually had a head start before that even occurred because part of my training, I guess you could say, with my degrees was I lived in London for about a year. And when I studied at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and when I left, I had a pretty good studio in Chicago. And I was a little afraid to let go initially because I was younger, and also we get in the mindset of, as freelancers, we're like, I need to make sure I'm making enough money to support myself, and now supporting myself going on this big journey across the pond. So I gave virtual lessons a shot from the beginning. I offered it to some of my students saying, hey, I'm going overseas for a year. Please go reach out to other local teachers if you want. I'm going to offer this if you want as well. And I didn't have the biggest studio while I was overseas, and that probably was good for me because then I got to, live life outside of the practice room for a little bit.
What platform did you use?
So I used Zoom for the initial, or no, not Zoom. That was for pandemic.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
Skype.
pandemic was Zoom. The first thing I used was Skype. I don't know if anyone remembers
Yep.
Skype.
The
Yeah.
lag
Yep.
is so
Yeah.
bad.
It's really awful.
Yes, yeah. So I experimented with Skype initially, and then for iPhone-friendly users, we were able to do
Is
FaceTime.
killing it these
Yeah.
days for lessons. I think
I-
we'll get there in a minute, but
I have to say I don't love Zoom and I don't love FaceTime, so I use a platform called Rock Out Loud Live. And they,
cool.
so it's Chrome. It's Chrome based, and they have worked on it so that rather than prioritizing the video, it prioritizes the audio. So even if the video drops because you don't have enough bandwidth, or little sibling in their house is watching something on Netflix, I still can hear everything that they're doing,
Yeah.
and it's as the best audio quality over the internet that I've gotten.
Amazing.
It's called Rock Out Loud Live.
Rock out. Is it
Loud.
free?
No.
Yeah.
Then
No.
I don't know, Alli.
No, but it's like $10 a month. It's not
write-off.
bad. Yeah, it's a write-off. And I've also messed around with the Duet Partner built-in lesson studio, and they do a good job also. I just found that I have more experience with Rock Out Loud, so I just would prefer to keep it that way. And with Duet Partner, in order for the students to access it, you have to input a whole student profile. So if you had a one-off lesson with a kid that you would usually see at a school, but their band director is like, no, you can't have them today, but they'll meet you after school. You can't easily set that up on Duet Partner.
Okay.
You have, so I found that Rock Out Loud was easier for me because I also have a wait list, and to access those students, I open up what I call occasional lesson times in my calendar, charged at a higher rate because they're not committing to the monthly or to the weekly lesson model. And I find that those fill up pretty quickly. But I like
Yeah.
Rock Out Loud.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I guess, and then with my collegiate level work, I'm very lucky I'm in a position where I do my collegiate work is that we've worked out a good deal where I'm not there all the time, in person weekly, but I'm alternating every other week, going in person, then doing virtual. I work out a good deal with my students. It's all about communication, saying, hey, if I can't be there in person this week, when I'm next time in there in person the following week, longer lesson, more time, whatever they might need, those resources when I'm not there.
I love that.
That's awesome. I'm wondering, Erin, in the Great White North, do you find yourself doing remote lessons because of snow issues, weather issues?
Yes.
Well, sometimes it's just not safe to travel. So having that option, much like illness, is wonderful. Also, I have students that live very far away from me. And so it's just a much better option. If they're living, 600 kilometers away from me, having an online lesson is more convenient. Yeah.
So then to follow up on that question, many teachers right now are not doing online because I have found that many students don't have the appetite for online, and the parents are really anti-online because of their experiences during COVID. And they're like, my kid didn't learn anything. I refuse to do online. Why would I do online lessons with you? So like my pitch is I teach the same, we'll cover basically the same material, but then to get around all of the sound compression, the audio issues, I have my students do homework recordings, and they send me a recording before their lessons. But I'm curious if there are other ways that y'all have figured out to accommodate for those concerns of parents or of like not getting an accurate sound picture.
I'll take this one. I found the opposite, actually.
Wow.
At least with my bubble in Austin. I think parents, especially in the summer, love the online lessons because they don't have to take their kid anywhere and take time off of work, and it really opens up the parents can still work while the kids are at home, and I can just jump on. But you really have to know your student. I haven't had a problem with that. I mean, during COVID, I feel like online lessons actually take more out of me than the in-person lessons. Like I always feel way more exhausted when I get off of and we all, we thread these lessons together, 3 to 4 at a time. I do have some boundaries built in, but I just get so exhausted. But the students, I think if it comes down to not having a lesson or having a lesson online, especially if somebody's traveling, they'll pitch for online. I mean, I was able to diagnose a cracked oboe over Zoom. I think during COVID, we all got really good at the online teaching and setting up the camera and make sure that I don't have the kid playing in front of the camera. I have them kind of turned to the side a little bit, and I make sure that they're set up and ready to go before the lesson starts. So it's not like this waiting to put this together situation. But I don't know, Suzanne, do you have any thoughts about, do your students, your college students have to do the online, but what about your younger students?
It's tricky. I do find, especially with beginners, I think it's really hard to start virtual
I agree with that.
lessons. Yeah.
I agree with that.
But it is a little bit of trial and error. And also being able to provide resources if you're not there in person for that moment. Sometimes if you are going to do virtual, maybe supplement, make sure your band class that the student is a part of is, getting like an oboe kind of attention class dedicated. Like I know in Austin, sometimes they have classes, especially for the beginners, it's like a double reed tuba class where one band director works with just the tubas, euphoniums, and then the other band director is working just directly with the oboes. So, and then in addition, they also have band class. Then there's the ensemble. So making sure things like that are being supplemented. But I think it's easier with my collegiate students because for one, they are so tech savvy. They're teaching me things. So if anything, sometimes when things aren't going right online, they're like, oh, I know how to fix this. Dr. Segredo, just set this, blah, blah, blah. So if anything, I'm learning from them. And also since they are more advanced at playing and understand the instrument a little bit better, they're able to adjust a little bit better to virtual instruction. That's great. But I'll keep passing it on because I resonate with a lot of you guys. So
I have nothing more to add.
Okay. All right. I have a whole list of this. Okay. So let's pivot to the topic of reads. Now, this can get really controversial. I personally do not sell reads to my students. I found it really stressful. When I started teaching, I had all beginners, and they were all in 4th or 5th grade. And I just struggled to make a read that they could play reliably, in tune, comfortably. And I was just like, let's not do that. So I've continued on that tradition of not using my time to make reads for these children that they're just going to destroy in a week, right? Because they inevitably get clumsy and they knock into something. So yeah, I'm curious to hear, how do you all balance that need to make reads for your students as well as like all of the other things that go into running a studio? Because as we know, it takes a lot of time to run your studio for yourself. So, yeah.
I do make reads for my students. I make my reads differently from my beginner students. My beginner students have very, very easy reads, and I provide them all. My more advanced students, I take reads that I was using that I'm no longer using, and they get my cast-offs. It is very time intensive. How I've solved that problem is the first 10 minutes of every lesson, my students know that that is scale time. They come in and that's the first thing they play for me, and I take that 10 minutes and I make a read. So for every lesson I'm giving, I'm making a read. And I've developed the skill, and you do over time, of being able to listen for what I need to listen, give the feedback while I'm scraping. And I found that has been really effective use of my time.
I do make reads for my students as well. It's taken several years to kind of find a good system that works with my life balance. Right now, I'm just tracking about 20 students, give or take, 18 to 22 on the day. I charge $25 a read. If a student brings me back a staple, I'll give them a $5 discount. Yep. So that way it's kind of helping me stay on top of my inventory. I have certain days set aside in the week that I do my bulk processing. And then midweek and in between lessons, I'm really conscientious of how I'm scheduling students back to back, that I'm allowing sensory breaks for myself and bathroom breaks and lunch breaks, but also my own practice time, because I play as much as I teach. And I was finding I was getting really resentful that I was giving all these reads to my students and they were beautiful and like brand new, and I was getting behind on myself. So I always make sure that I have reads first. Something that I'm so excited to share and like advocate for is over the fall. Last spring, actually, like a year and a half ago, I got a shaping machine, you guys. And it's everything. I didn't realize how much time I was spending hand shaping cane. And so I got, and I don't work for Reads and Stuff, but I got a Reads and Stuff shaping machine, and I found a shape that was similar to what I use. Dude, I can knock out 20 pieces of cane in less than 2 minutes.
Wow. And
And it's consistent, and you stay on top of the blades being sharp. So that was the first hack with reed making that really helped my pipeline and my process. And then the second thing this fall is I got a profiler, and that was a game changer. And there was a learning curve, about 6 weeks of taking notes and making, little tiny adjustments, one variable at a time, to see what works with my setup. I did get it dialed in, and I can make a read with a profiler, probably 85%, and then I will hand finish as the students request them. So I'm averaging probably 50 to 60 reads a month. Maybe 15 of those are for me. And I try to have a fresh stock of reads at the beginning of every month. Yeah. And it's built into my students know they're going to be getting 2 reads every month. So I don't have to really, for the most part, wait for them to request reads.
Wait, so do you build that into your fee? Like it's already included in your fee structure?
It goes into their invoice as 2 reads. Here are your August reads.
Oh.
And so it's automatically built in. And sometimes they need an extra, or sometimes they'll be like, I'm doing pretty well because I haven't been playing so well. How about just 1 read this month? So I keep on top of that. But I find, especially for the Oboe babies, they don't know when they need new reads.
No, it's
And
true.
I have to tell them and be the bad guy. I'm like, okay, so it feels really hard because it's not open. So, and then, if they stay on top of fresh reads, they know what a new read feels like. There's not that like, oh, this read is so hard. I'm like, it's not so hard. You're just used to playing, your read is 2 months old.
2 months old.
So, so those are my big hacks with read making. And I found that I've become much more proficient at it. Yeah, I'm just really excited about that profiler. I was really reluctant to jump on board because old school, Boston teachers, everything's done by hand. So I'm like, why am I being so snobby? If there's an easier way, if there's a more efficient way, and then I can control the results by hand, like, why aren't we doing this? You know, my husband jokes, like, why aren't there 3D printed reads? Like, you know, why do you have to spend 3 hours every Sunday? Like, this is 2024. And I'm like, I don't know, but, you know, he gets it. So that's my read situation.
Yeah, I'll kind of add on to that. I kind of do something similar. It's something about that Austin band program setup. It really works to kind of incorporate reads into the monthly invoices. I'm a little transparent with my parents, at least for the little ones especially. I try to guarantee maybe 1 to 2 reads for them a month. But what I also do is I encourage them to buy reads from some of my friends and support their small businesses.
I do that as well. Like, have a backup plan for a vendor that you like
Yes,
one.
yeah, especially because I think that's great for their embouchure training, because that way they're really developing a good diverse embouchure setup for their reads. And, you know, the reads that I recommend, they are similar to what my read style is. So it's not, you know, completely my style, but also it's slightly different. So I encourage them to find different reads too. And that's what's so great about these conferences too. You get to meet so many people and learn about their different read styles and setups that it's like, great, let's all try this and, you know, not gatekeep all of our secrets. And also what I also do is when I tell the parents, if I'm having a really busy month of traveling or performing, I'll give them a heads up saying like, hey, I know I'm going to give you maybe a read, but maybe go contact these sources. But I guess that's my read. Talk. Yeah.
Do you communicate more directly with parents or with students, or is it just kind of age? Like, I don't remember the last time I've communicated with parents for my high schoolers, and even my older middle schoolers at this point, are texting, and they can text me like 10, 11 at night. I'm not going to respond because do not disturb. But I had a high schooler just text me. You know, do you remember? I don't know if it was a big deal over here, but remember when the Popeyes chicken sandwich was like a big deal?
Yes.
Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
So I had a student text me at midnight, hey, can you please bring me a couple reads to lesson tomorrow? Also, the Popeyes chicken sandwich was everything. Like, he got his hand on it. But I liked that he felt, you know, I can text my teacher at midnight. I'm not going to respond, but he felt open to do that. And no, I didn't bring him reads because I usually need about at least a week heads up to get something together. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually, one of the things that I model in lessons is I feel that teaching in itself is a performance. So we like to model behaviors that we want our students to kind of figure out who they are in their identity as a musician. So I will communicate, you know, from baby or older, or high schooler even, saying like, you're going to need a new read if they, you know, are like a 6th grader or 7th grader. Yes, I tell them, but I also make sure I tell the parents. So, you know, they're both getting both communication, and they're just learning how to communicate when it's time to need reads, and, you know, how to ask appropriately for reads or when you need extra help, and, you know, setting up modeling good behavior.
I love this modeling good behavior. I have often coached high school students through emailing, like sending an appropriate email to accompanist, because they have no idea. They have no idea how to send. And luckily, the accompanist that works for my studio recitals most of the time is also an oboe teacher and has met these kids. So like they have a little bit of a rapport already. But rather than saying, hi, Miss Emily, I'm playing this at the recital, can we set up some rehearsal times? They'll be like, hi, here's my music. When can we rehearse? Thank you. And no sign off or anything. So I find that like, it's really interesting, the other stuff that we get the opportunity to teach these kids. And I feel very validated that you have similar experiences, because like
along that
the
line,
etiquette is just not there.
Self-care too. Like, a lot of these students aren't taking care of themselves. A lot of times they are not eating before they're coming to my lessons. So I always have a stash of granola bars in my bag, and they know that they can. But I've had to text some parents and stuff, like, just so you know, Julia didn't really eat lunch before her lesson today. And, you know, it really kind of made things a little challenging for us. And but they get stressed out. And what about?
Sorry.
I do. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, that most of the people in my studios will never play oboe past high school. And that is very meaningful work to me. It's something that, and I think that as oboe teachers, we become a very important person in this young person's life.
Yeah.
And it's a very sacred relationship. And I take that, it's a responsibility. And we don't just teach them about the oboe. We teach them so many other things. And being able to draw on your life experiences and being able to help these students, I think it is something that initially when I started teaching, I didn't feel qualified to do. You know, I was a young 20-year-old teaching an oboe lesson, and I would have a student cry in a lesson, and I thought, but if you are at the beginning of your teaching journey, you do gain experience doing that. You get much better at supporting these students because they're having very real life issues, you know, and the oboe, because it's a vulnerable place, you know, when you're playing this instrument, you know, it can be a place where they will emote in a way that they can't with someone else. It also may be the only point in their week that they are having alone time with an adult, someone they trust, especially if you've known the student from the time they're 10 to them growing, graduating from high school. If you teach them for that long, you have a relationship with them, and it's very meaningful work. And I think it should be something that's celebrated. You know, these oboe players will be our audience members.
Yes.
You know, they keep classical music moving forward. They're so important to our ecosystem, you know. I did want to say one thing about parents. I found that over teaching that I was having the same conversation with a parent. Yes, reeds are expensive. No, they don't last very long. No, you shouldn't put it just in the case. It needs to have a hard case around it. Like I was having the same sort of conversations.
Or buy them on Amazon.
Don't buy them on Amazon.
Buy them on Amazon.
Please don't buy an oboe without me trying it.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes.
So I came up with a little video series for my parents that I send them this little package. It's about 15 minutes long, and it just walks them through the things.
Can I have
Saves me so much
that
time. I'll
video?
send it to you.
Is it- okay. So I can just share it with my parents since you did all the work.
Please.
Thank
Yes, you're
you.
welcome.
Great.
Anytime.
Yeah, is it on YouTube? Can you?
It's on YouTube. It's
Okay.
on my YouTube channel.
Oh, perfect.
doing
All
that.
right.
Yeah.
What's your YouTube handle?
Oboe Wonderful, and it's called 7 Things Every Parent Should Know About Playing the Oboe.
Oh yeah, we all love an informative
List.
listicle. I love it. So as we're talking about how much we do or don't involve parents, one thing that we had discussed a little bit yesterday was that process of breaking up with the student when it's time to say goodbye because things just aren't working out for whatever reason. And in my experiences, I have both involved the parent and also not involved the parent. Sometimes the parents are very hands-off, and sometimes it's more comfortable to call the parent in and have the parent go, if you're not actually practicing, I don't want to pay for it, but also I'm not mad. So maybe y'all can speak to that too.
I'm good right now.
Sure.
I've had an internal struggle a number of times with students, feeling that something wasn't working. It may have been our communication style. We weren't connecting. I don't require my students to practice. I want them to want to practice. If they only play oboe for 30 minutes every week, that's their oboe time. I'm still getting paid. I really don't care. I don't have requirements. So that being said, there may be something that's not serving them. It may be that they are disrespectful in their lessons, and I start not looking forward to teaching them. And that I've learned that for me is my litmus test of I'm no longer serving this student. I think I need to find them another relationship, because I think they all deserve my best, you know, that I'm excited. I really want to connect with you. You're going to do great. And if I can't access that person because of how we're interacting, then I pass that person along. I often talk to the next teacher about my experience so that they know going in, and they're often able to build a better relationship.
That was so articulate, and I agree with everything you said. I don't require my students to practice, but I do ask that they bring me something every week. And then I do give them grace, especially around testing time or other, stressful, because we're humans and we're not robots. I actually say that a lot in my lessons. Our goal of a lesson is to leave with one new thing. because then we're constantly improving. You know, we're about progress and not perfection. So if I have had to break up with a student once, and it was due to disrespect, and it was more the conversation of, I don't think that I'm a good fit for you anymore. I appreciate it. And it was a student I had for 3 years. But when we're working on a D major scale for 6 months, and I'm driving in to teach that student, you know, I've rearranged my whole day to do this, and the student either doesn't show up or shows up and has nothing, or has even like back. And I do try to say, oh, well, what's going on at home? What's happening in your life? And after those questions, after I'm prodding, because I always do a vibe check at the beginning of every lesson, so I know how to progress with the rest of the lesson. If they're distracted about a boyfriend or about a marching band thing that's coming up, and I know to take it easy. Or, but you know, I've had I don't think I'm a right fit for you right now. I'm going to text your mom moving forward. It seems like you're more into saxophone, right? So I'll check in with the saxophone teacher and see if we can get you set up in that direction, since that's the way you want to go. I do always give grace, and I do always give heads up. Like we've missed several lessons without heads up. Those are lessons we have to pay for, and you know, I get to sit there and practice or make reads for myself. So but at the end of the day, same thing, same litmus. If I find myself driving in to teach the student and I'm like, ugh, I've got so-and-so now, that feeling, I don't want to teach with that feeling, not just from personal, but like, that's not right that's not fair to the student. So I just try to be honest with myself about that. And I might be breaking up with another student, not because of the student, but because of the parent. Because when the parent doesn't pay you, I mean, we're a business too, you know, and or like is ghosting you, and that kind of like that poor communication. That's kind of a deal breaker for me, because this is a partnership. So, do you have something to add?
Yeah, just a couple comments. This might go a little off tangent, but kind of similar onto the path. There's 2 points that come to my mind. I resonate the same thoughts with Erin and Jaleen about the process of breaking up, but also in these moments when we're deciding, I think it's important to discuss the idea or the principles of discipline in our student. And when I say discipline, and not like punishment, but you know, just kind of creating the whole conversation of, I've showed up for you, so you need to show up for me. So creating good discipline in what you do in just not music, but in life and your character development and how to be a functioning adult in this lifetime. So that's just one thing I add to the idea of when considering breaking up or just establishing a good relationship with your student. But I had this thought while you guys were talking that maybe not always breaking up, but encouraging your students to go take lessons with other people as well. I think sometimes, you know, especially if I find maybe the younger teachers, maybe we get a little insecure and we're afraid to have someone go and take another lesson because we're like, oh no, what if like they think they hate me now? You know, they like learned something brand new from a new teacher.
What if the teacher coaches my student?
Yes, yeah, you know, so there are all these like little what if thoughts that we have to say, hello, it's okay, put you in the back seat, it's okay, this is fine. So encouraging, you know, not necessarily breaking up, but get different perspectives, because that's how I think what's so unique about oboe playing too. I mean, musicians in general, but I'm a little biased since I'm an oboe player. We have so many styles and techniques and so many different ways to learn, because we should be teaching how our students learn best, you know, so knowing when, you know, a certain way of teaching doesn't work for them, knowing when to either pass the torch or being able to adapt to how they learn best, sending them off to master classes, summer camps, festivals, if you know, we can provide those resources. And also, if they can't afford them, finding ways to help get those resources for them. So that's at least what I wanted to add.
Speaking of, can I ask a question? Speaking of like income and kids affording, do you guys offer scholarships for some students? Like, what is your process with that? If they're like, oh, those rates are too much. So I reserve 2 spots in my studio for a reduced rate. I do a 50% rate, but with the stipulation that the student has to show up. The student has to show up, and we have to be, you know, rolling along.
Sure. I do not. Well, I feel like in a small business, many things can be negotiable. So when a parent approaches me and says, look, I cannot pay this rate because of whatever reason. And in the Bay Area, there have been a lot of layoffs of tech workers, and it's very expensive to live. So I've had a handful of parents come to me and say, like, is there something we can work out? We can afford the rate that you were at last year, but not this year, and stuff like that. So I accommodate, of course. But I think I am in a really privileged area where there is a lot of resource available to provide lessons. And also the idea that we are a business that has to come from somewhere. Like that ability to provide a scholarship means that I would have to then add maybe another hour of teaching to make up that lost time in my budget, or maybe I add another like 2 sectional visits per month kind of thing. So I don't do a lot. I don't often have a request, but I have in the past.
So Canada is a socialist country, and there are government programs that support the arts, and so I partner with those programs, and they will pay my full rate, so that I don't lose, and these students get access.
Canada, everybody.
It's a different model, right? I do, however, something because of my background and where I'm from and my lack of access to information, I do an annual event. It's called Squawk, and it's a double reed band, and we pull all the bassoons and oboes from 200 kilometers away. And we gather, and I do it for free. We do lots of rehearsals for a month, and then we do a grand gala concert. And that is so fun. It's great for the students. I will also say, as a business owner, when those parents come to that concert and hear the change that it makes to their student, and it's the last thing they hear before they go into the summer, when September rolls around and I send out my email saying, hey, who wants to continue with oboe lessons? They're like, the thing they remember, these parents, is that wonderful gala concert. And so I don't lose students. And I also they bring people from their school. And so it's often where I meet my students. So I use it as a way to connect. So sometimes some free things can be to your benefit.
What kind of venue are you using for that? I find organizing recitals, if I don't have a school space, that finding a venue has been challenging. So for that kind of event, what type of venue are you?
For that event, because I teach at a university,
Got it.
they see it as a recruiting thing, which it is. Yeah,
Great.
So it's free.
Cool.
Yeah.
You just have to get that in at that church. Join, yeah. Meet the music director, get them to accompany
I'm
your
shameless
students.
and I have no problems promoting myself and like cold calling or cold emailing because I've had to move a lot. So I've gotten really good about sending out those emails like, hi, I'm a new oboe player in the area. Do you need an oboe player?
This is a great segue into one of the possible topics that I had, which is what's your main recruitment method? So for me, for a while, it was connecting with band directors, doing one free sectional, and then getting hired back to go back into schools, and then slowly meeting the students and having them go, I want to play oboe better, and stuff like that. So how about, and Erin, you just spoke about your Squawk.
Yeah, I also, I send out a letter to all of the band directors and invite the band directors themselves that I will provide them an oboe if they want to work on their oboe skills. It's so fun.
I love that idea. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's very good.
That's amazing.
Oh, I guess I have the mandrill. Yeah. So, so I guess there's a few ways. I'm kind of lucky in the Austin position when a band program kind of like hires you on as your teacher, the primary teacher. Students kind of just naturally get to sign up with you. And a lot of the schools that I work at, they kind of require saying like, this is the teacher you need to study with while you're at the band program.
As a caveat, the Texas schools hire us as independent contractors. So the schools are not paying us unless there's extra stuff that we're invoicing the students directly.
Yes.
Our rates.
So I guess there's some natural recruitment built in there too. But one of the things that I do, or some of the things I do, is sometimes I just go to local music stores, post my information if they are interested. If hey, I'm a local teacher in the area. If you need anything, here I am. I also put on like little mini summer camps. I know I'm nowhere near as established as like Boca Majority, but just sometimes I'll like do a little advertisement like, hey, this week we're going to do chamber music. We're going to do reed making, regardless if you're my student or not. Come in, join the fun. And the other thing that I also like to do is I like to get into communities where maybe they don't have access to these materials. So like I'll try to go to local libraries, put on like a little mini recital, or I'll have my friend, who's a flute player, bassoon player, will go play duets and just get into communities and just, play for them and have conversations. And sometimes that turns into recruitment for private lessons, but also kind of just the idea of just getting music a little bit more accessible to all of our communities, not just in like the major part of the cities.
Such a good person.
Thank you.
I love that idea of building the community around you and like going into the place where you are planted, even if like there's not something structurally built for you. It can be harder. Like you have to be creative. You have to find the people that will let you have the time in the library or in the school. But we have time for, I think we should go into if anyone that has been watching, listening, has any questions, because we're coming to the end of our time and I want to make sure that we don't run over. So yeah, any questions?
We're not
from y'all?
gatekeeping.
Yeah, okay.
I'm curious about your squawk event. Did you say it goes over the course of a month?
Yeah, so we do weekly rehearsals for a month. So it's intensive for them. They learn very hard music, even my beginners. And I put my beginners right beside my university students.
Is that built into your monthly invoices? I know you said you're doing just most of it but like those extra rehearsals and things like that. Is it all just inclusive to study with you?
All of my students do come, but I open it up to anyone who plays the instrument. So I ask them to bring their friends. Yeah.
Is it like a 2-hour rehearsal?
Yeah, about an hour and a half. I share it with my principal bassoonist of the Saskatoon Symphony. So she does the bassoons, I do the oboes, and we talk about oboe-specific things, particularly if there are band directors there. It's very helpful because I know that that's going to trickle to any student that sees them. So it is a lot of work to put together with but it's profound what it does to a community, and it just creates this ecosystem. You should do it too. I'll send you music.
Question about the profiler.
Yes.
Would you say there's a break-even point? Like, how many students would you say would make it worth the investment?
Okay, so I think the number, excuse me, thank you, I'm sorry. I think reads and stuff say that you should get at least, 200 to 300 reads before you need to like resharpen the blade. But okay, so I think it was around 1,500. Suzanne, do you remember? How much are the profilers? 1,100. So it is an investment. It does pay for itself like pretty quickly. I would assume as well as a gouger does, but it's paying me in my time. It's paying me in my time. It's paying me in consistency. And that's worth so much to me right now with 2 teenagers at home and my own playing. So that's how I justify it. And I'm a much happier wife and mom now that I have a profiler, because I'm not so stressed about, oh my gosh, I've got 1 week, I've got to finish 20 reads. And I was feeling that. And I don't like that yucky feeling, like when you're going to a student that you know is going to bail soon. You're like, oh, I've got this student now, or it's that same feeling like, oh, I can't do the things I want to do because it's going to make reads. I don't have that anymore, and so that was the ticket for me.
I have something else to say to Anne. Sorry, were you? Yes. One thing about the squawk concert, all the students that study with me privately play a solo. And so, and then we prepare as squawk, we prepare just two or three pieces. So, and what that does is the parents can hear how their child doesn't sound like the child who's had lessons. The student itself can hear what the difference is when you have access. So you don't have to have that conversation where you're selling, what you're offering, how much better it will be for the student, because
It's obvious.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
It's totally obvious. Yeah.
So you do this event instead of like a studio recital?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Because you do a studio recital anyway, so
It's in addition to your studio recital?
no, like one should.
okay,
I would
gotcha.
recommend doing a studio recital. That's
Gotcha.
something that's so good for the students, of course, but also for marketing your program. Just from a business perspective, you're showing what you're offering. Yeah, and
So
makes
it's like a studio recital, plus you invite outside people to be in the ensemble.
yes, yeah, yeah, and then they often will become the students. Very rarely have I had a student who's come to participate in the ensemble that doesn't eventually take lessons.
That sounds like an amazing
It's
recruitment
super smart.
opportunity.
It's
Yeah.
so fun.
I think Suzanne and I are going to steal that and do the Texas version of it. So
Squawk, Texas.
Yeah, I bet you have an
We will.
amazing repertoire list too.
Yeah, I've got repertoire that. Oh, sorry. I've got repertoire. My bassoonist. I've got repertoire. She's a great arranger, and so she'll arrange pieces that have one part that's for an absolute beginner that can play B flat and C, and then another part for the university students to show off. So it's very
we're
nicely
going to
balanced.
connect with you more about
Okay.
this. And
Yes.
see if
Yes.
we
Yeah.
can
Awesome.
do the Texas version. That's really
Yes.
exciting.
You're going to become a music publisher.
Not me. Stephanie.
Let's get back to student reads.
Yeah.
Two-part question. One, Alli, you said you don't make reads for your students, but then you didn't say what you did.
Oh, yes.
And then
They don't play, they just
like we do have. Do you give them recommendations? Do you have?
Where do they get their reads?
Anyway, that's part one, and then part two is just like, what do you, all of you, like, what are important elements to be in a beginner read? What are sort of the
I
physical components?
feel very
that you
strongly about
look
this.
for?
Yeah, okay. So what I do is I have a list of places where the reads generally work for the students throughout their process. And I say to the parents, you're going to have different brands. It's going to be something where we have to figure out what works best for your child. But at first 6 to 9 months, honestly, we go with something that's inexpensive. So I go for the Singin' Dog brand because they play, sure, they're flat. They are flat across the board, but they absolutely play. I've never had a student not be able to play a medium hardness read. And I think it's really important that the medium hardness is something that you get out there immediately,
I agree with that.
because medium soft is not going to do it for you. So my beginners, usually we start with Singin' Dog, and then I move them up to something in the vocal majority. They just redid their lists. Often we will have them try a Forest green label, because those are also pretty reliable student reads. I think they're made by KG, so it's pretty reliable. And then as they get more advanced and they're looking for more color in the sound, I've found that wildflower reads actually match my style pretty closely and in my setup, and so my students are able to adjust pretty well. And I forgot what the second part of your question was.
There's another event in here.
Yes, that's true.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I think we have a lot to talk about, and
Yeah.
these forums are fantastic.
Aren't they cool?
Yeah.
Good job, Alli.
Thank you.
Alli and I are in the same area. Do we ever have time to just?
No, we
That's what
never
we were
have
saying
time.
at coffee yesterday.
To have it more outside.
Sure.
And so maybe we can organize something on Zoom, like a Zoom.
all go.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about and share.
All right.
Thank you.